You've probably heard the term international aid thrown around a lot, right? We're talking about billions of dollars flying across the globe every single year. But what is it really? Is it this incredible lifeline that pulls countries out of poverty? Or can it sometimes, just sometimes, become a heavy weight holding them down? Okay, let's get into it and really unpack this.
At the end of the day, this whole conversation really boils down to one huge question. The world just isn't a level playing field. I mean, some countries have unbelievable wealth and opportunity, while others are up against just massive challenges. So the question is, how do you even begin to bridge that gap? That's the problem that aid is trying to solve.
But hold on. Before you can fix a problem, you got to be able to measure it, right? How can we actually, objectively say that one country is more developed than another? And spoiler alert, it is definitely not just about the money.
Well, that's where something called the Human Development Index, or HDI, comes in. Think of it as the global yardstick. It was developed by the UN, and it totally rethinks what success means. It looks at three key things: a long and healthy life, having access to education, and, of course, having a decent standard of living. It just gives us a way richer, more complete picture of a country's well-being.
All right, so we know how to measure the gap. Now, let's talk about the main tool we use to try and close it: international aid. Simply put, it's when one country voluntarily sends resources. Could be money, could be experts, could be goods, to another. But here's the thing you have to understand. Not all aid is the same.
Yeah, it's really important to get the two main types. First, you have emergency aid. This is like the first responder. After an earthquake or a flood, it's the food, the water, the tents. It's all about saving lives, right here, right now. But then you have development aid, and that's about playing the long game. It's a strategic plan to help a country get on its own 2 feet.
And that second type, development aid, is really all about that old saying, you know the one. The goal isn't to create a system where a country always needs help. The ultimate goal is self-sufficiency. It's about passing on skills, knowledge, and building infrastructure so that one day aid won't be needed at all.
So how does this aid actually get from point A to point B? Well, it flows through 3 main pipelines. First, you've got bilateral aid. That's straight from one government to another, like a direct partnership. Then there's multilateral aid, where a bunch of countries pool their money into big organizations like the UN or the World Bank. And finally, you have NGOs, non-governmental organizations like Trocare or Concern, who are often working right there on the ground.
Okay, that's the big picture. Now let's zoom in and get practical. Let's see how this stuff works in the real world by looking at a specific example. Ireland's official aid program, which is called Irish Aid. And it's actually known around the world for having a super clear, very focused strategy. In the core of their philosophy, the thing that guides everything they do is this idea of targeting the furthest behind first. This isn't about giving aid to the easiest places to work. No, it's a very deliberate strategy to seek out the poorest, most vulnerable communities, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, to make sure absolutely no one gets left behind.
Their whole strategy is built on 4 pillars. The first one, tackling poverty and hunger. It's something that's really rooted in Ireland's own history. But look at how they do it. It's not just about sending food. It's about providing things like high-quality seeds and training to farmers in a place like Ethiopia, so they can build their own food security for the long haul.
Building on that foundation, the second pillar gets into the real basics of human development: health and education. So we're talking about funding rural clinics in Mozambique to help make childbirth safer, or even tackling really simple but crucial barriers, like making sure there are school meals, which can be the one thing that keeps a kid in the classroom.
Then we get to pillar 3, gender equality. And this one is an absolute game changer. The research on this is just crystal clear. When you educate and empower women, the benefits just explode across the entire community. I mean, look at this stat. Educated women reinvest about 90% of what they earn back into their families. That lifts everybody up.
And finally, Pillar 4 takes on one of the biggest, most unfair realities of our time: climate change. The countries that did the least to cause the problem are often the ones getting hit the hardest. So this aid is all about adaptation, like helping farmers in Malawi find and switch to crops that can actually survive in a world with less rain and higher temperatures.
Okay, so that's the 4-pillar strategy. It sounds great on paper, right? But what does it actually look like when it hits the ground? Let's check out 2 really different case studies to see how these ideas come to life.
Let's take our first case, getting vaccines to Nigeria. This is a great example of how different types of aid can work together. You have the Irish government making a direct donation, that's bilateral. But getting 500,000 vaccine doses across the world is a massive logistical puzzle. So they worked with COVAX, a huge multilateral organization, to actually get the doses where they needed to go.
Now, for our second case study, we're talking about something totally different. This isn't about giving a product, it's about sharing an idea. Ireland has this hugely successful science fair competition for students. So they exported that entire model to Kenya to get kids excited about science and tech and to encourage them to come up with innovative solutions for their own local problems.
And here's what's so powerful about it. This isn't just some small pilot program in the capital city. They've rolled this out to all 47 counties in Kenya, every single one. That's a real commitment to that idea of reaching the furthest behind first.
So we've seen some amazing, positive stories. But now we have to ask the tough question, the most important question, really. With all this money, all this effort, is aid always good? Does it always work? And the honest answer is, it's complicated.
Look, the argument for aid is undeniable. Let's be clear. It saves millions of lives in emergencies, full stop. It's helped us wipe out horrible diseases like polio. It has massively boosted literacy rates around the world, and it's built the roads, dams, and power grids that are the absolute backbone of any modern economy. The successes are real.
But, and this is a big but, there is a dark side. We have to be brutally honest about the risks. If it's done badly, aid can create dependency. Huge amounts of money can and do get lost to corruption. Something called tide aid can end up benefiting the donor country more than the one receiving it. And imagine this. Dumping tons of free food into a country can literally put local farmers out of business. This is how you end up with what people call white elephant projects. You know the kind I'm talking about? A rich country donates a super high-tech medical scanner to a hospital, but the hospital doesn't have a stable enough power grid to run it, or any local technicians who know how to fix it when it breaks. The good intention just ends up as a very expensive, very useless piece of junk.
So, where does all of this leave us? We've seen the incredible good, and we've seen the real dangers. It's pretty clear aid isn't some magic wand. You can just wave at a problem. The future has to be about learning from both the amazing successes and, just as importantly, the painful failures of the past.
And that really brings us to the key takeaway. So what's the secret sauce for making aid actually work? Well, it seems to come down to two big ideas. The best aid is bottom-up. It starts by working with local communities to figure out what they actually need, instead of being imposed from the top down. And its number one focus has to be sustainability, building things up so that eventually the country doesn't need aid at all.
And that really leaves us with a final question to chew on. In this super complex, interconnected world we live in, what does it truly mean to help? Is it about giving things, or is it more about sharing knowledge, creating opportunities, and stepping back? It's a question without an easy answer, but it's definitely one worth asking.